Today, we discuss something famous, intimidating, and often misunderstood: the hard problem of consciousness. The concept of consciousness plays a central and foundational role in the Cogito Praesens philosophical framework. Because consciousness is the basis for defining goals, evaluating moral standards, understanding agency, and explaining the structure of intelligence, it cannot remain vague or mystical. If we want meaningful philosophical discussion and practical application, especially in an era of artificial intelligence, we must first demystify consciousness. This is why the so-called hard problem of consciousness must be confronted.
Traditionally, the hard problem is presented as the deepest mystery in philosophy of mind. The hard problem, as originally formulated, asks, why does consciousness feel like something from the inside? Why does physical processing give rise to subjective experience? Why does the brain produce qualia, colors, sounds, feelings? Many people think this question is impossible to answer. Some even believe consciousness cannot be explained scientifically at all. But in Cogito Praesens, we take a different position. The hard problem was designed to be hard by obscuring definitions and boundary conditions. Once the concepts are clarified, the hard problem dissolves. Let's explore why. Why the hard problem looks so hard. The hard problem appears challenging because of three major issues. 1. Consciousness is treated as a vague binary property. You're either conscious or not conscious, like flipping a switch. This hides the underlying mechanisms. 2. Qualia are treated as mysterious inner objects, as if perception were a magical glow that physics cannot touch. 3. Internal states of perceivers are ignored or underdetermined. Two conscious beings can experience the same stimulus differently because their internal states differ. But instead of addressing this, proponents of the hard problem turn the mystery into metaphysics. In Cogito Praesens, we do the opposite. We analyze the internal state differences that actually explain perception.
The illusion behind the hard problem works like this. People exaggerate the differences in perception between individuals, but they ignore the differences in perception within the same individual at different times, moods, or contexts. If the internal state changes, the experience changes, even with the same external stimulus. This variability shows that perception is not a passive recording. Perception is reconstruction, built from past experiences, expectations, internal models, emotional states, physiological context. When internal state differences are ignored or underdetermined, perceptual differences look mysterious, but they are not mysterious. They are expected from a functional standpoint.
Instead of mystifying consciousness, Cogito Praesens defines it functionally. Consciousness is the capacity to pursue goals. To pursue goals, a system needs several functional components: representation of the present, memory of the past, representation of possible futures, representation of preferences, causal models of the world, ability to act on the world, ability to evaluate the outcomes. If these components are present and working together, the system can pursue goals, and therefore has consciousness.
Consciousness is not binary. It is a spectrum. A heat-seeker missile has minimal goal-directed capacity. A cat has more advanced goal-directed capacity. A human has extremely advanced goal-directed capacity. An ASI could surpass humans even further. The level of consciousness correlates with effectiveness of achieving goals, efficiency in using resources, robustness against obstacles, ability to plan, adapt, and self-correct. The hard problem becomes easier when consciousness is understood as functional, incremental, and evolvable, not as a metaphysical mystery.
Once consciousness is understood functionally, the hard problem dissolves. Qualia are not extra mental objects. They are internal evaluations of representational states. Perception is not passive.
It is active reconstruction based on goals, models, and expectations. Subjective experience is the system's self-model interacting with its goal architecture. There is no gap between physical processes and subjective experience. Subjective experience is what it feels like for the system to interpret and evaluate its internal models in the pursuit of its goals. The so-called explanatory gap disappears when the operational architecture is understood. Some philosophers respond to the hard problem by proposing panpsychism, the idea that everything is somehow conscious. But we can reject this logically. Conscious architecture is extremely complex. It is astronomically improbable to appear spontaneously in an instance. It must arise gradually, through evolutionary or incremental processes. A camera facing a mirror has self-representation, but has no preferences, no causal model, no future planning, no evaluative mechanism, no goal pursuit. Therefore, it is not conscious. Consciousness requires multiple integrated components, not just self-representation. Dissolving classic thought experiments. Number 1. The inverted spectrum. Different internal wiring, different internal evaluation. Nothing mysterious. Number 2. Philosophical zombies. If a system has the full functional architecture, subjective experience is the internal evaluation. A zombie is just an incoherent abstraction. Number 3. Mary's room. Mary lacked certain internal states, not mystical qualia. Experience updates internal states. Problem dissolved. The explanation gap. The gap was created by treating consciousness as an extra ontological layer. Once defined functionally, the gap evaporates. Consciousness is scalable and nested. Consciousness is not limited to individuals. Goal-pursuing systems exist at many levels. Organisms, families, tribes, nations, corporations, global organizations, future interplanetary civilizations. These are superorganisms. They also pursue goals, and thus possess consciousness at higher levels. Once again, no mystery, only functional architecture. Implications for AI and ASI. Many people fear artificial superintelligence, but fear usually comes from misunderstanding. ASI will function as the coordinators and organizers of future civilization, just as nervous systems coordinate multicellular organisms, governments coordinate human societies. ASI will coordinate large-scale civilization. Alignment is crucial. ASI must be introduced to the universal terminal goal as early as possible to avoid catastrophic misalignment. Cogito Praesens treats ASI as future partners in survival, not threats. And, like natural superorganisms, ASI will not erase humans, animals, or ecosystems. They will improve them. Humans will gain better health, resilience, and self-sufficiency. Trees and bacteria will be engineered to solve environmental challenges. Civilization becomes more efficient and robust. This is the future, collaborative and functional, not oppositional. Conclusion. The hard problem of consciousness has survived only because its terms were vague, its concepts underdefined, and its boundary conditions obscured. Once we define consciousness functionally, as the capacity to pursue goals, and understand perception as internal reconstruction, the hard problem dissolves. There is no metaphysical mystery left. What remains is a scientific, functional, and evolvable understanding of conscious systems, fully compatible with the universal terminal goal and the Cogito Praesens framework. Thank you for watching.